Aloha and good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to This Is Now. Our first alert weather coverage continues because, Ash, we are not out of the woods just yet. More severe rain could hit us in the next day or so.
That's right. This after some areas of windward Oahu got nearly a foot of rain yesterday.
The severe weather caused major problems on windward Oahu roads. Crews worked into the night clearing loose debris from slopes along Kalanianaole Highway. That work forced the shutdown of townbound lanes near Kailua. Northbound traffic on Kamehameha Highway was also shut off for more than 4 hours between Kahalu'u and Kualoa. An ambulance on its way to Adventist Health Castle was struck by a tree branch, but some Good Samaritans stepped in to clear it. Meanwhile, Monday afternoon, Honolulu firefighters had to help 15 people from vehicles that were caught in high waters in the Waiahole Waikane area. Some people waited for hours for the roads to be reopened. We'll have more details on severe weather later this week, coming up in later editions of Hawaii News Now. Now to the latest H&N Investigates piece, where our Daryl Huff looks into Hawaii's rural health care crisis in a place where people who need specialized care have to catch a plane to get it. On Molokai, there are so few medical services that people can't get an MRI, surgery, or anesthesia on island.
For many folks here on Molokai, the lack of medical services has an impact before they're even born.
You can wake him up. They don't have the resources over here to check the gender, to check if they have other chromosomes, to check if they have other fingers, or if they're growing well. You have to go fly over there.
7 months ago, Lexis Kalave gave birth to her son Nayo in the same bedroom where she grew up. The family has a history of home delivery, and she'd witnessed too many scary stories.
So my auntie, she was literally giving birth, but they took her to the plane and they tied her legs shut so that the baby wouldn't come out.
Molokai Hospital doesn't have the capability for advanced imaging, surgery, or anesthesia, so many moms, especially those with risky pregnancies, deliver off-island. So on-island midwives, especially trained in Native Hawaiian practices, play a major role, and that was Lexis's choice.
I just felt all these scenarios that I'm hearing that happen to people that I know close to me, it could happen to me. So I knew if I was in my own home, I would feel way more comfortable with anything that happened.
And things did happen.
The cord was fine, wrapped around his neck. I birthed him out, and she unwrapped it, and she didn't, nothing, it was nothing to freak out about, and he cried 1 minute later. Everything was fine.
The choices available for those healthy and young are one thing, but for Kupuna, the choice can be much starker when forced to fly to Oahu for specialty care.
And they say, I don't want to die on Oahu, you know, I want to be home. There's a chance I might get worse. I don't want to get stuck there.
Dr. Kaohimanu Dang Akiona is the only MD in private practice on Molokai, taking over the clinic founded by Dr. Emmett Oluli, who died a year and a half ago. She struggles to engage people with a medical system that seems to have passed the island by.
Usually some of the elderly, the kupuna, and they just go, more better I die. Humbug like that, you know, that's too much humbug. Why go? Why even try?
It's a challenge to be old on Molokai. It really, really is. So, yeah, I've heard kupuna say, I give up.
We met Auntie Kaui Manera at a house in Kaunakakai repurposed by the county into the Molokai Kupuna program.
Come on in, Auntie.
Where services aim to keep seniors healthy and mobile.
I'm calling to remind Uncle Ermin of his haircut for tomorrow at 12:30.
We get a lot of services that we don't get on this island. We get forgotten by the other islands.
For Mary Kalilikani, a foot and leg massage from Chisa Kalani will help keep Mary on her feet.
There's not a lot of people. The podiatrist flies here like once a month or something like that, and so, the feet go often, overlooked, and when your mobility is challenged, and then that's when the quality of life goes down, so it feels good to do this kind of service.
The center also offers computer help for telemedicine and a gathering place to fight off helplessness and despair, side effects of an island with so many needs.
It's sad. This is 2024, and I think poverty is a cruel, cruel monster, and he's alive and well on Molokai. I've heard Kupuna say, why bother?
For many, the answer to why bother is in the family ties, like those that gave Alexis Kalave faith to go without a doctor.
If my baby turned out to have deficits or if he was different, it's fine. It's okay. He comes out how he comes out.
How is he?
He's perfect. He's so perfect.
Okay, can you take a deep breath for me?
In our next report, why some doctors come to Molokai but don't stay.
Good. One more. Can you do one more here?
And joining us now is our Daryl Huff to expand on his story. Daryl, you're looking into this issue on Molokai. What's something that people should know about this, having already seen that first piece?
Well, I think what we saw in that piece and what I sensed over there is a sense of just sort of sadness and despair, frustration. People have to fly to get to specialists. They don't have access to the health care that they deserve over there. And it is really what we're talking about later in our 6 o'clock story today is about how this is a statewide problem. It's not just Molokai. Molokai is the worst example right now because it is so isolated. But this is a statewide problem. It's a full-on crisis.
What can be done to fix this?
Okay, well, one is money. An awful lot of it is about money. The reimbursements from government health care programs like Medicare and Medicaid are too low to support these rural practices. I was told that the reimbursement for Medicare here in Hawaii is no different than it is in Ohio or Indiana, and that we have a much higher cost of doing business. One of the solutions that's been suggested is that we get a special exemption for Medicare from Congress to basically pay our rural providers more out of Medicare. And a lot of other things are pegged to Medicare, things like reimbursement from private health insurance, Medicaid, so that would make a big difference, just to make enough money for these folks to get by, because these doctors, they're losing money to serve these communities.
All of this sounds like a long shot, though, to become a reality. Is that the case?
Yeah, they're just hanging in there. These doctors are just hanging in there. And we really saw impacts on patients, people who are going with chronic conditions undiagnosed. I've talked to family members of people who said that they do truly believe that for lack of care, their elderly relative died early.
That's such a heartbreaking thing to hear. Looking forward to the other stories in this series. You have 2 more, right?
2 more.
Tell us about those.
So today we're looking specifically at why the providers are struggling so much, and that's all about the low reimbursements, the lack of support for rural healthcare versus urban healthcare. Tomorrow is a very interesting story about the airline that serves Molokai, Mokulele Airlines, which has so many complaints about their reliability. They say they're absolutely getting better. They brought in a bunch more planes. They're getting a lot better. But down the line, they may be facing competition that could literally knock them out of business.
And also, you yourself flew to Molokai, and I overheard you had some problems there. Can you tell us about that?
If our spot check of the travel was not particularly successful, we were an hour and 45 minutes late arriving, another hour or so getting off the island. And people told us that's pretty typical, although the airline, again, says we're getting a lot better. So we'll see.
All right. Well, our Daryl Huff with a special series out of Molokai. Daryl, thank you so much for this.
My pleasure, Dylan. Thanks.
In news of the courts, defense attorneys rested their case Monday in the public corruption trial involving former city prosecutor Keith Kaneshiro. This trial began on March 20th. The defense called only 3 witnesses over 2 days. Closing arguments will begin today and could take another 2 days. Kaneshiro is accused of taking bribes from workers at an engineering firm, Mitsunaga and Associates, to prosecute a fired employee of the firm. If convicted, Kaneshiro could face more than 3 years in prison. And there is a big development in the recovery effort around the bridge collapse in Baltimore. Crews use a massive explosion to break apart the remnants of a 600-ton steel beam that was still resting on top of the container ship that struck near the port of Baltimore. Ryan Nobles has more on what this means for traffic into the port.
Signs of progress in Baltimore.
Oh my God.
A controlled demolition of a massive span of steel, still stubbornly on top of the container ship Dolly. The operation prepped beforehand with precision cuts in the steel to allow the heavy metal to fall off the ship and be removed much easier, opening the door for the vessel to finally be removed from the middle of the Patapsco River.
This was a very big milestone for our progression forward. It was a tremendous span that was sitting on top of the vessel, pinning it in place.
The 21-member crew of the ship, still on board since the crash, were moved to a secure location below deck as the explosives went off. The ship has been in a vital shipping channel for close to 2 months after it slammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge, toppling the almost 50-year-old structure and taking with it a major traffic artery for the metropolitan Baltimore region and shutting down one of the busiest ports in America. 6 construction workers died as a result of the accident. Last body recovered just this week.
This is bad.
The aftermath of the collapse caught on newly released body cam footage from police officers responding to the scene. Those first responders struggling to comprehend the scale of the incident.
Something's missing here in the skylight. The whole center span is gone completely. It's in the water.
The National Transportation Safety Board and the FBI are both conducting investigations into the accident. Baltimore and Maryland leaders have promised a full rebuild of the bridge, a complex and expensive project that could take up to 4 years and cost more than $1.5 billion. But while that remains the long-term goal, in the short term, the priority is to get the port reopened, a process that will get much easier once that massive ship is out of the way.
With the prosecution's star witness back on the stand today in Donald Trump's hush money trial, some high-profile allies came to show their support for the former president. Michael George reports from New York.
Former President Donald Trump entered court Tuesday with some high-profile Republican allies, including House Speaker Mike Johnson.
I am disgusted by what is happening here.
Johnson later spoke outside the courthouse, where he attacked the credibility of the prosecution's star witness, Trump's former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen.
This is a man who is clearly on a mission for personal revenge and who is widely known as a witness who has trouble with the truth.
Trump's defense team also tried to undermine Cohen, a convicted felon, during cross-examination. Earlier, Cohen testified that payments he received from Trump were reimbursements for the $130,000 he paid adult film star Stormy Daniels to keep quiet ahead of the 2016 election, and not for his legal services. The presumptive GOP presidential nominee insists he did nothing wrong.
So I had a legal expense, and I marked it down as a legal expense.
Trump is facing 34 counts of falsifying business records. Prosecutors say he engaged in election fraud by classifying the reimbursements as legal fees.
You have the 34 documents, but what you have to get is the nexus between falsifying those records, misdemeanors, into an election violation.
In a setback for Trump, an appeals court upheld Judge Juan Merchan's gag order, preventing Trump from talking about witnesses and jurors in the case. Trump has been held in contempt for violating the gag order 10 times and has been threatened with jail for future violations. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
A state court has decided not to stop the city's removal of the Ha'iku stairs. An injunction and temporary restraining order to halt deconstruction were denied yesterday. The Friends of the Ha'iku stairs argued they would be irreparably harmed if the historic structure was removed. But the judge said because the trail is already illegal to hike on, that argument is not valid since they aren't allowed up there anyway. It was also ruled that state protection of historic sites does not apply to the stairs. The city responded to the ruling, saying due to ongoing severe weather, the removal of the stairs that started weeks ago will be postponed. Closing arguments in the Red Hill tainted water trial, with plaintiffs revealing how much they think each of them should get. Now, the case is seen as a benchmark because multiple lawsuits and thousands of claims are awaiting in the wings. Mahelani Richardson reports.
The 17 bellwether or lead plaintiffs are seeking $250,000 to $1.2 million in damages. After closing arguments, there were hugs, tears, and photos as plaintiffs marked a milestone in the Red Hill saga, where in 2021, the Navy's fuel spills contaminated Pearl Harbor's tap water. During the trial, plaintiffs' attorney showed a jar of water with oily particles. In their closing arguments, they said there's no acceptable level of jet fuel in water, that it caused a slew of illnesses, including headaches, nausea, seizures, and brain fog. And unlike the Camp Lejeune toxic exposure event, this one has been documented in real time. Plaintiff after plaintiff broke down on the stand, all from military families.
We've been angry, and rightfully so, but we've done it because we care. And we're asking the military to care.
We know that the government contaminated the water and didn't tell people not to use it. And we know that these families don't want that to happen ever again.
But Eric Ray from the U.S. Department of Justice said the plaintiffs, quote, stopped using the water, that doses of fuel were all below what could have caused health effects. Symptoms lasted 2.5 days, and that the exposure did not cause their long-term physical and mental health effects.
I did keep drinking the water because I received an email on the 3rd of December that said it's been verified safe.
Beforehand, I had no signs of these tremors at all.
Plaintiff 18-year-old Bo Jessup claimed he developed tremors after the spill and cannot join the Navy like his father. Attorneys are asking for nearly $500,000 for his pain, suffering, impairment, and therapy.
I never thought something like this would happen to me.
This was completely preventable. It didn't have to happen.
Judge Leslie Kobayashi thanked both sides and said to the plaintiffs, quote, I wish I had a magic wand that could restore you. It's a reduction of everything you went through. It's the only currency that we have. It's not known when the judge will issue a ruling, but it's expected sometime after July. Reporting from federal court, I'm Mahelani Richardson, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you, Mahel. Let's take you to the Lauai Resort on Kauai. There's more severe weather on the way. Guy Hagi has your full forecast after this break.
There's still some lingering moisture around the state. Flooding conditions are still possible today, but they go up tomorrow as a disturbance drops in, and that disturbance, that kona low, could be lingering for several days. In fact, the flood watch goes into effect tomorrow morning all the way through Friday. Could be extended beyond that. Now this morning we've got a line of heavy rainfall heading towards Oahu. Looks like we're in line to get the most rain. Some of that rain will eventually get to Kauai in addition to that kona low dropping in. So the first alert conditions will go up for Kauai today, and then they'll go move down the island chain through the next couple of days. Now the winds will remain light. However, in and around the storms, the winds could get quite gusty, maybe even damaging. So heads up, be prepared for that possibility. So Tuesday is going to start out a little dry for some areas, a little wet for Oahu. Again, with those spotty downpours and the saturated ground, flooding is still possible. Remember that flood watch goes into effect tomorrow statewide. Now should dry up for the leeward sides by later on this morning, and then we'll see a few more downpours this afternoon because of the light winds, similar to what happened to Oahu yesterday. Surf's kind of taking a break today, but tomorrow a significant south-southwest swell will be picking up, could get up to high surf advisory levels. So again, we could see more spotty downpours today. First alert is for Kauai, then the first alert conditions go through the rest of the state through Thursday, could even be extended in through Saturday. That kona low really fires up by tomorrow. That flood watch goes into effect tomorrow morning for the entire state, runs through Friday. We have first alert conditions at least through Thursday, and the heavy rainfall could extend into the weekend.
President Biden is raising tariffs on some Chinese-made products, making them more expensive for Americans to buy. The president says the Chinese government is subsidizing these items, creating an unfair competition. Skylar Henry has more from the White House.
President Biden, surrounded by union workers, signed strong new tariffs targeting Chinese-made goods and green technologies because he says China is creating an uneven playing field.
To make sure American workers and American business and corporations can compete and win in the industries of the future.
The move pushes the U.S. tax on Chinese steel up to 25%. Chinese-made semiconductors will be hit with a 50% tariff. Electric vehicle batteries will rise to 25%, and Chinese EVs will have a 100% tariff placed on them.
We're never going to allow China to unfairly control the market for these cars, period.
The new tariffs on China are a position change for President Biden, who had previously slammed former President Trump for taking the same action.
Every single step this president has taken in dealing with China has exacerbated the challenge, has made it worse.
Speaking outside the courtroom where he's on trial, Trump claimed Biden is late to the party.
He wants to put a big tariff on China, which is a suggestion that I said, where have you been for 3.5 years? They should have done it a long time ago.
President Biden was asked about Trump's comments following the ceremony.
Trump said today China is eating our lunch. What do you say in response? He's been feeding them a long time.
It's no coincidence that among the states most impacted by China's trade practices are the presidential election battlegrounds of Michigan and Pennsylvania. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
The fallout continues for the Miss USA organization. The mothers of former Miss USA Noelia Voigt and former Miss Teen USA Uma Sofia Shrivastava are speaking publicly following the resignations of their daughters from their respective titles. Their mothers appeared on Good Morning America Tuesday to speak out, claiming their daughters can't due to non-disclosure agreements. Voigt's mother said her daughter was approached by a man who asked her if she was into old men with money. That's in line with Voigt's resignation letter, which claimed the Miss USA organization did not give her appropriate travel accommodations and left her alone in a car with a stranger. She also claims organization officials told her they can't stop people from saying things to her at public appearances. Shrivastava's mother says both women were, quote, ill-treated, abused, bullied, and cornered, unquote. The women's resignations mark the first time a title holder from either pageant has stepped down. Meanwhile, first runner-up Miss Hawaii USA Savannah Gankowitz will be coronated in a ceremony here in Hawaii tomorrow. The organization has yet to find a successor for Miss Teen USA after the first runner-up Miss New York Teen USA Stephanie Skinner turned down the crown.
And in today's good news now, when Meg Morrison is not working behind the counter of the Beans & Co. in Connecticut, she's regularly walking on her treadmill, taking classes from her favorite Peloton instructor. And a few weeks ago, something really magical happened at their studio in New York. Taylor Kinsler has the story.
Meg Morrison is here with us. Hi, Meg.
I was so happy. You couldn't have scripted a better day.
But first, we have to go back to the beginning.
Beans has been in existence for a little over 5 years.
2 families, 1 vision.
To really put the lens on inclusive employment and show people what's possible for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Kim Morrison and Noelle Alex created Beans & Co. for their daughters, a community where everyone belongs.
That's why we want other businesses to do what we do.
Giving employees like Meg Morrison the chance to shine.
That's what is super special, to watch the effect that she has.
Customers know and love that smile. Her energy lights up the cafe and the Peloton leaderboard.
You know, she works out every single day. For the social part of it as well, to be able to see the same person that she just adores, you know, leading a class.
That person is Maddie Majacomo.
When it became evident that Meg was taking my walk-in classes, obviously it's really hard not to fall in love with her immediately.
They quickly connected on social media and became fast friends with the help of a longtime Beans & Co. customer.
And without even like a hesitation, he's like, let's make her a video where I'm thanking her. And he did. He made a really funny video. And I brought it back and showed her. And like, the rest was history.
That video was just the start. Maddie then designed an entire Peloton class just for Meg.
We surprised her the night before and told her that we would be going to the city. The whole, you know, we got up really early. Yeah, we did. And I did the 30-minute walk, which she killed it.
I love you so much.
He came back to meet us with his Everyone Belongs t-shirt on, gave us a tour of the control center.
And to be able to meet her in real life.
You give really good hugs.
To be able to reach somebody like Meg and to hear Meg's story, it's why I come to work every day. It's why I do this.